Salutations, fellow readers, writers, and killers of time on YouTube. My name is Martha Jones, and I am not trans, but some of my favorite humans are, and I don't feel that I would be doing right by them if I did not say something. As you may already know, for a couple generations already, there has been this lady who wrote these books that did pretty well enough to make some movies out of them, who offered an escape for children who felt not entirely comfortable in their normal everyday lives. What we didn't know at the time is that not everyone was welcome in that escape that the author designed. So much so that not terribly long ago, that author came out with some pretty insensitive tweets, and when the trans community reacted in anger and pain, she responded by coming out with a book several months later featuring a trans antagonist. A portrayal of trans people that I'm certain has all the sensitivity of Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs or Norman Bates from Psycho. Now, as a not trans person, I have struggled with the making of this video because I really don't want to say anything awful on accident. I legit don't know what to say to trans folks except, persevere, I love you. The world does over time to the soul what acid rain does to marble, and it does it more so to y'all, and I'm so sorry. And then I remembered, that lady is a writer. I talk to writers on a semi-relentless basis. Not only does the average writer possess certain eccentricities that make it super easy to identify with lots of people, including them what live in the trans community, those are eccentricities possessed by this writer. So, because I could not stop thinking about these eccentricities, and because the internet has an insatiable thirst for top 5 lists, I would like to use the androgynous sounds of my voice to share with you a few words about 5 things the average writer and trans person have in common. Thing number 1, the certainty of rejection. If the internet is to be believed, as if I didn't know better, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was rejected at least 12 times before it was picked up by Bloomsbury, somewhat less than those received by Gone with the Wind at 38, A Wrinkle in Time at 26, and more than twice that of Lolita, which received a paltry 5 rejections before it was published. An astonishing fact which I can only say, no! Bad publishing industry! Down, boy! Thing number 2, the nom de plume. When people refer to J.K. as Joanne, it is usually in the spirit of trying to annoy her, which is not unlike what human beings do to other human beings when they use their dead names. While Samuel Clemens and Charles Dodgson are not quite the same as dead names, they are names that the authors came with and ones that they chose not to use for reasons of their own. Mark Twain and Lewis Carroll are names that they made up and expected us to call them, and in order to not call them by those names, it takes a conscious effort to search the memory archives for the names that they came with rather than the names to which they were introduced to us. But a case could be made that we're not respecting their wishes and being terribly rude. Thing number 3, the defiance of audience expectations. So both in fiction and real life, anytime you defy audience expectations, you're taking something of a risk. As a rule, writers do not risk martyrdom every time they write an unhappy ending into their story, or they have the lady love run off with the bad guy instead of the hero that we've been rooting for the last 300 pages. But occasionally they do receive death threats, lose a lucrative job, risk alienating longtime fans. See, people come in a couple of assortments. 1, the kind that gets bored easily and likes to see something different from time to time, or 2, the kind of person who likes to see the same thing over and over again because predictability makes them feel smart. You can have all good intentions as the author and be trying to take this person on a journey with you to some place they'd never been before, but because the outcome is not something they could have predicted, they feel stupid, and then they get angry at you. So until we teach our audience to expect something else, the defiance of expectations will always be a risk with potentially dire consequences. Thing number 3.5, an uncommon level of human empathy. The reason this gets a half and not its own number on the list is because I cannot justifiably recommend this to trans people. As a survivor and amateur counselor of people who have survived all sorts of bad people doing bad things to them, I cannot see empathy with those bad people as pertinent to one's survival. People for whom your right to exist is negotiable don't deserve your empathy. Writers, on the other hand, can go one of 2 ways. They can empathize with all sorts of people and widen their demographic space, or they can write for a very specific target audience and never need to experience empathy. My kind of sort of examples for this are George R.R. Martin versus Stephen King. George R.R. Martin has all sorts of misogyny in his books under the guise of historical accuracy. A lot of people cut him some slack for world building and assorted other virtues. I'm not one of them. Won't go depthily into that today, but dragons. If you made room enough in your fantasy for dragons, sir, I believe you could make room for about a thimbleful less misogyny. Stephen King, on the other hand, has rather famously written about girls getting their periods in his horror novels. And he gets some things wrong, but because he writes from a place of empathy, I am more inclined to cut him a little slack. Like, as an eyewitness of someone's first period, it doesn't look like this, But to a little girl who is going to be expected to deal with a horror show in her slacks every 28 days for the next 40 years, it feels a lot like this. I swear to God I had a point in there somewhere. Long story short, you don't need empathy to be a writer. You need empathy to be a good writer. Thing number 4, relentless invalidation. If society basically gets that you're a girl, you don't necessarily freak out about getting misgendered at the Dairy Queen. There are a lot of people who feel super comfortable invalidating you as a writer regardless of color, creed, or gender. How many times this year, month, or week has somebody engaged you in casual conversation and gone, "Oh, writer, that's nice." Or perhaps, "Funny, what's your real job?" And thing number 5, resilience. So, by no means do I want to minimize the suffering of people who are gender nonconforming. What they go through in their day-to-day lives is an order of magnitude different from what the rest of us go through. But the steps we take on our paths are similar. Keep telling your story until someone wants to hear it. And there's no reason you should have to be this resilient. You shouldn't have to deal with the world trying to murder you. But if you defiantly exist for long enough, get under the world's skin, make yourself a nuisance, I think that might be the most efficient means of getting it to acknowledge your personhood so it heckin' leaves you alone. Whatever happens, please don't give up, and please don't conform. That's the last thing the world needs, is for the behavior of bad people to be rewarded that completely. I'd like to go back to the novel Carrie for a sec, if I may. In Danse Macabre, Stephen King had this to say about the young lady who inspired Carrie. She was a very peculiar girl who came from a very peculiar family. The girl had one change of clothes for the entire school year, and all the other kids made fun of her. I have a very clear memory of the day she came to school with a new outfit she bought herself. She was a plain-looking country girl, but she changed her black skirt and white blouse, which was all anybody had ever seen her in, for a bright-colored checkered blouse with puffed sleeves and a skirt that was fashionable at the time. And everybody made worse fun of her because nobody wanted to see her change the mold. And that, in part, friends, is I think why change for the better is so slow in coming. If the guy next to you lacks the courage to break the mold and sees you try to do it, he's gonna get mean and surly. Something else about Carrie that I'd actually forgotten is that when Carrie is locked in the cupboard by her evil mama, the saint that is on their altar is Saint Sebastian, who has a unique place in history, if memory serves, as the saint who was martyred twice. He was saying some stuff that the locals did not like, and they shot him full of arrows. People who were friendly toward him collected his body, took him away, nursed his wounds. When he recovered, he came right back to the same spot where he had irritated those folks so completely the first time and said, "As I was saying." And I feel like that mix of relentless grace and orneriness. I don't know if anyone has nominated a saint for trans people yet, but I'd love to see him on the list. I think that's the gist of what I wanted to say. As always, thank you for giving these videos a shot. I post whenever the day job allows. If I've said something stupid in error, it kinda wouldn't surprise me, but I swear I meant well. Until next time, take it easy. Love you. Bye.
Like my channel, buy my crap, doo-dah, doo-dah. There's no time to take a nap, oh the doo-dah day. Hey!
Usually I use this part of the video to share with you some outtakes or any number of half-witticisms I have laying around in my noggin. But my first trans friend ever came with the name Roger, and they preferred to be called Jennifer. And they were smart and funny, and alas, I can only remember 2 of their jokes. One was whenever grandbabies were around. When babies were around, they would head boop the babies and go, "Meeting of the minds!" Ooh. And the joke they most oft repeated was, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and apart from that there was nothing. And then God said, 'Let there be light.' And there was still nothing, but you could see it a lot better." Loves y'all. Rest, as they say, in power.